northward. At the uppermost finger of the reservoir, he dismounted and let his horse drink her fill. Silas unscrewed the lid of his thermos and drank 2 cups of coffee, black and still steaming in the moist morning. Silas took a moment to meditate on the beauty of the place. The persistent aroma of eucalyptus hung thickly in his nostrils. A wild peacock called from a nearby field. The grass on the hills all around him waved and reflected the sunrise light and shone persimmon orange. For the past 3 decades, Silas Van Loy had thought of little aside from horses, women, wine, and killing his brother Frank. In his hazy imaginings of this last occupation's aftermath, there was always more time for the first 3. He would kill Frank in whatever way his mind conceived in that particular moment, and then continue on with his business, training the yearlings and greenhorns that ambled into his barn, giving lessons, taking students to shows, and then, in the nighttime, visiting local taverns and wine bars, and working his cowboy charm on the women, perhaps getting a taker on an invitation back to his trailer. But now that Frank was gone, he realized his naivete. Other than the horse he rode, he would have little to do with the gorgeous beasts for the foreseeable future. As for women, riding away from his spread in Nicasio in the wee hours of the morning, the sun making its initial announcements over Mount Tamalpais to the east, he found his desire for them depressed in a way it hadn't been since before his inaugural hard-on at the age of 10, when Alice Carpenter, a homely, squinch-faced girl, lifted her skirt to reveal dust-colored panties bagged around her little buttocks. He was leaving his life behind, his past and his present. The horses, his thirst, and his desires would all have to wait. In planning this ride, this getaway, he had come to understand how ill-equipped he was. He had tens of thousands of dollars, perhaps $100,000, worth of tack and equipment. But did he have saddlebags? Something so simple as saddlebags. He finally found a set, hard and dusty and cracked. A rare Western staple in the English riding world of Marin County, they'd been unused for 30 years now. He recognized them as his father's, and marveled at how they'd managed to end up there in his tack room all these decades later. How he must have moved them himself without a thought of ever using them. He packed in a few t-shirts and underwear, an extra button-down, a spare pair of jeans, a toiletry set, and a farrier kit for such occasion as Disco's hooves might need a bit of tending. He rolled a sleeping bag and pillow and strapped them to the back of his saddle. In addition to his coffee thermos, he carried a canteen of water and a leather wine bota he'd purchased 2 decades before in Basque country, and into which he'd funneled a liter of a decent Napa Cabernet, for such occasion as he might need a bit of drowning. He finished his coffee and mounted Disco and continued north, emerging from the bowl of the reservoir, feeling exposed, unmoored in the absence of trees. Crossing Red Hill Road, he was startled by a car coming quick around a bend. It was light enough now, and the car was close enough, that in the split second he looked, he could make out that the driver was a woman, brunette. He wondered what she could see of him. He pressed Disco into a quicker trot and pulled his Stetson lower over his face and directed the horse into a dry brown channel between 2 hills. The road seemed to take on some significance, as if it were a boundary line, the first of many, and now that he was past it, he was that much farther away from what had been his life. But Silas also knew that it was just a road, same as any other, and that he was only covering ground, even if he hadn't the foggiest notion where he was going. Behind him, the sound of the car passed by, and he was left in the shush of the wind purling over the grass. 2. Within minutes of her return to the house from the hospital, and before the police came by for their interview, Lena received a phone call. Carly, old friend. Jesus, I just heard, Carly said. My God, Lena. It can't be, can it? Lena, exhausted, said, Yes. My God, Carly said again. What are they...